Hello, and everyone. Welcome to the MGZS or MG EVs podcast, streaming live on Monday, 26th of April, 2021. We're here to talk about the MG ZS EV and MG5 electric cars, hoping to inform and entertain you for about an hour or so. I'm Richard Edwards, username EVs and Beyond on the forum, and joining me on this episode are MG EV owners David Stewart from Inverness, Scotland, Michael Fisher from... Sorry.
Hi, Dave S. on the forum.
Michael Fisher from South Wales.
Hiya, my username is FishTubeBean on the forums.
Stuart Whitman from Southampton.
Hi, I'm Stu Witt on the forum.
And Miles Roberts, the Innovation Manager from Chorley Group.
And Miles per kilowatt hour on the forum.
Right, thank you all for that and joining us. So if you're watching live, please click the like button and say hello in the chat window. If you're watching later, thank you for choosing to watch this video, and please subscribe. It really does help the podcast and the community to get a notification when we go live next time. Now, tonight we're speculating about new MG cars, the Cyberster, the Marvel R, the MG5 facelift, and the ZS EV facelift. Don't forget also later on to please have a look at our merchandise. There's a link to the shop on the forum menu. Mike, that's a pretty darn good t-shirt there.
Yes. Got it, one of the first, long sleeve black one. Very nice. And I love it. After washing it, because when it comes straight from the factory, it smells a bit gluey, but once you wash it, I can't stop wearing it.
You can't get it off because it's still glued.
I haven't had a look yet. What are they worth? What do they cost?
So for the long sleeve was about £23. And then £3 postage. So yeah, pretty good. And I think premium members also get a discount now, which is new. But I don't know the full details of that because I think that's later on. It's going to get revealed.
Right. So I guess we should head into our discussion. So we've had the 2021 Shanghai Auto Show last week. Lots of really tasty, interesting electric vehicles released there, including a couple of shown by SAIC or MG. Now the Cyberster. What do we think? I mean, and anyone got any initial thoughts on just the spectacular, I think, design of this concept car?
Oh, it's beautiful, beautiful car. Really like the look of it. I think it's really good to see MG rolling out something which doesn't look like an SUV. I think it's really good to see MG teasing us a bit. I mean, it's obviously it's very concept car looking, you know. So there are some design features that you think, well, they would make it into a production car, like the sort of hidden oval headlamps, which harks back to the MGF and the MG BGT. I like the low slung nature of it, although I think that's a bit artificial lower, really, because I think that I saw a photo of a guy driving it off a transporter onto a transporter, and he was sat looking over the windscreen. So I think that, you know, in terms of ergonomics, they haven't quite nailed that yet, unless they manage to find the tallest person in China to drive the car. No, well, I think the car looks great, and I'd happily have one of those on my driveway.
Yeah, it looks absolutely.
Who else would have one?
Absolutely stunning.
Does it have roof rails?
I'm presuming it's have some sort of pannier rack on the back, you know. Like,
what's the rating for the roof rails, please? I'd like to know.
Yeah, I don't think it can tow probably either.
No, probably not.
I don't think you get your dogs in there either, Stuart.
No, I don't think so. Well, they can sit on the passenger seat, can't they? So is that because I saw some 0 to 60 sort of times. Are they going to be realistic? Does anybody know?
I guess anything's possible with an electric car.
Well, I guess so. But they reckon about 2.9.
Yeah, the same 3 seconds. I mean, that's what Tesla's doing with the new Roadster and what they're currently doing with the Model S Plaid. So yeah. It is, you know, possible. It's whether it's possible to do it in a price that you can afford to sell it at, and that people pay. And that's, I suppose, part of the sort of question about this is how much do we think it'd cost, and B, how much would you be willing to pay for it? Because it's a niche car, you know, and the higher the price, the more niche it becomes. But then you get to a point, perhaps, you know, to me, that looks technologically or performance-wise and looks-wise, size-wise, it looks to me like it should cost the same as the BMW i8, which in the UK is about £100,000. And certainly I think that if we were to bring that to production, I think that unless they can do serious volume, that's probably the sort of price point it's going to be. It's going to be sort of, you know, more sort of 80 to 100 rather than sort of 20 to 30. I don't think you can produce that sort of car. I think the manufacturing process is to get the, you know, those panels and things like that together. I don't think that's going to be possible on a car that you can buy for sub £50,000. I might be very surprised, and I'd welcome that. But I think looking at that, that's going to be a more pricey car.
I think
the question
midget version.
I guess the question at this stage of the MG brand is whether they're willing to invest and develop and sell that kind of vehicle under essential development and production costs, just as a way to broaden the scope for the brand, particularly if they want to push into even more markets. Does anyone have any thoughts about whether they might do that as a bit of a halo model? It's not an unknown in that market.
No, and I think that also, I mean, halo models, that's kind of what BMW did with the i8 when they launched the i3. So, you know, the i3 was the one that was sort of, you know, £30,000, small little car. But the i8 and the fact that they shared some component styling, design cues and things, meant that probably they got a lot more i3 customers than they would have had otherwise. Whether MG can afford to do it at the moment or not, in terms of, you know, would they get enough? Would they sell enough of them to make their money back? I'm just not sure. I think it looks amazing, but I think that, and perhaps we, you know, obviously this is a concept car. Perhaps we'd see a more toned down version. I say with some of the design cues and things. I think most people here would be happy to drive a soft top car that is 0 to 60 in 6 seconds rather than 3, if it saved £20,000 on the price, for example. I think that, you know, you'd perhaps sacrifice the 24-inch wheels for some 19s, if that saved a few more £1,000. You know, so some of the styling cues could be toned down a little bit, and I think that I think that it as a design study, as a showing the direction that MG is trying to sort of reminisce slightly about its past as sports cars and things, but bring it up to date. I think it's fantastic. I think it's a real triumph. But I mean, I could be very, very surprised they could bring it out, you know, as a production model, but I just think that it's designed to be a concept car, and we're probably not going to see it in that format. And some of the things, obviously, like the interior with a lot of gamification on the dashboard and things. A lot of you know, sort of 3D graphics, and, you know, the steering wheel that looks like it looks like a bit like a PlayStation controller, to be fair. You know, I think they're sort of, you know, the designer's having a bit of a play, but no, I think it looks fantastic, and I think those wheels might be a bit big for the ZS though. I was thinking if I could get a set on, you know, AliExpress or something, but no. So
even with spaces,
yeah.
See, Carol Taylor's actually said it's a nice looking car, but it needs a roof. I would think for the British market, it certainly would need some kind of covering.
It would need an option of a roof. It would need even if it's a Targa top or something, it would need some sort of, you know, click out panel or whatever. Yeah, let's face it, you wouldn't be able to guarantee getting out in the UK, taking it for a drive and getting back dry, would you? So ironically, it's not rained for the last 2 weeks, but
I think the interesting thing as well is, you know, if it's going to be really expensive, the price point for MG at the moment it's almost like too expensive for what the brand is doing, and it's kind of blowing things out of the water. But perhaps if you look historically, you know, when the MG BGT came out, that was very much, they used to refer to that as the poor man's Aston, didn't they? some, or the E-Type, the poor man's E-Type. I wasn't around in those days. I don't know if anybody else was. But anyway, so just sort of saying that perhaps they might even put it at a price point where it is considered to be, if you like, your poor man's i8, let's say, and maybe pitch it at 50k rather than the 80 that you're suggesting, and then you might get a few more people, or it might just be like a pie in the sky kind of thing, mightn't it? But who knows? Because the Chinese seem to be surprising us with all sorts, don't they, at the moment?
Yeah, no, I think it's. I think that MG would probably set their sights on launching a sports car at around the sort of 35 to 40,000 pound price point in the UK. I think it'd do well. Then I think it'd be like the MG BGT.
Yeah.
I think if they try and make something like that, and it was say £100,000 or £80,000, you're swimming with some quite big fish who've got existing client bases and things like that. You know, and it's almost harder for MG to launch a car at that price point than it would be for someone to create a brand new company, like, let's say, I don't know, Fisco or, you know, Bristol or any of these other sort of heritage marks that, you know, they haven't had a product in the product, you know, for years. If they came and launched a car at £100,000, everyone would go, oh, fair enough, that's what the cars cost. But I think when you look at, you know, sending an MG3 at you know, sort of £10,000, it makes it quite a jump.
Yeah. I understand. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And
I think you've got to look at Cyberster in the context of the future of the MG brand. I mean, I honestly believe they will come out with a sports car. They've hinted at it before. The boss of MG News in Australia has hinted at it before. I think it'll be style, perhaps like the Cyberster, but perhaps a little more practical, obviously. And performance levels, you know, they've got hardware in their existing EV SUV options in China and in some markets, and we'll get to the MG Marvel, for example, that would get a car of that size pretty darn close to those performance figures without a huge amount of additional engineering. And then you also look at the fact that SAIC wants to expand globally, as I mentioned before. If you go into the US, MG is known in the US for sports cars. Pretty much no passenger cars were ever sold. They didn't go through what the UK and other markets had in the 80s and 90s. They are known for small sports cars. So arguably a car like that would be the great car alongside some larger SUVs to launch them into that giant market.
Yeah, no, I agree totally. I think that it's something that, and previously MG has discussed that they want to launch that sort of vehicle. So it is very much on, you know, up for discussion, you know, at a director level. It's just a case of making sure they get the right product at the right time. I think that, you know, that when they first showed the e-motion concept, which was what, 3-4 years ago now, and they said that they wanted that to be, you know, sort of £35,000, have a range of around 400 miles, and 0 to 60 in about 4.5 seconds. And stylistically, that was a very good looking car also. This one, arguably looks slightly, even, you know, they both look like production ready cars in a way. This one looks slightly close to production. Actually, you know, we've seen videos of it driving under its own steam, albeit very slowly. So I think that, you know, it's rather than just a sort of, you know, clay model, it has actually been made as a physical, you know, manufactured piece, albeit a very beautiful one off at the moment.
Yeah, a few folk in the chat are saying it's just obviously just a concept car and that's all, but it's encouraging that you've seen it being driven. But
will it be available in black for Batman?
Oh, I think it looks superb in black, wouldn't it? I think that it looks pretty damn good in that red, though, to be fair. But yeah, no, yeah, black, silver. I suppose, to be fair, David or some of the other Scottish people probably still choose white if it was a free paint option. But
ooh, for the Batman thing, I'd think nah.
Oh dear me.
What would people rather MG were working on than a sports car? I mean, would you like to see a larger electric SUV? Or there's been talk recently, I've seen Autocar about an MG3 size electric hatchback at a far lower price point. I mean, what would people like as other options for MG?
So the MG3 electric hatchback, I was in some talks with MG start of 2020. The design studio are actively doing design sketches, and they were sort of using as a bit of a soundboard to see what we thought about the different sketches and things, and which design direction they were going to go. So that's very much in the process. In terms of what do I want them to do, as a volume product, I'd like them to have an electric MG3. I'd like them to have an electric version of the HS or Marvel R or Marvel X or whatever you want to call it. I'd like them to do a convertible. Obviously, I think a sport or a 2+2 sports car. I think that MG. A lot of people historically are with MG because they think cars like the MG BGT, and they'd love to buy an electric version of it. Yeah, I mean, somebody even said to me the other day, wouldn't it be good if they did a MG5 as a two-door estate van, even as a 5-door, but make it a commercial vehicle, so with no back seats and just plated out in the back as a load lugger for small businesses and things. And I think that would work well. But again, it's you've got to sort of pick the place where you think you're going to make a lot of money, and probably there's not so much money in if they sell 30 of those van MG5s in the UK, because everybody else just goes, well, I might as well have the back seat and fold it when I don't need it, then you've not really made your money back, have you? So yeah, no, I think that overall, I mean, they could do with a product for every single niche. I'd like a I think the ZS, I mean, I like the ZS shape. I like that shape. I like that, crossover style size car. I think that works really well for a lot of families. And I think that, so working on that basis. But having said that, I don't want them to just make Russian doll versions of the ZS HS, as they kind of do. So they have to have
people on the chat are very excited about the possibility of a electric MG3. Down my end of the world, we would love an electric pickup. Or ute as we call them down here, where they make up top 3 or 4 top selling vehicles in the country. And there's rumors and talks going around in regards to MG bringing a ute to New Zealand. They do actually build one in Thailand, the MG Extender, which is the same vehicle as the LDV T60. I'm not sure if you get that up there. There's an electric LDV T60, so hopefully that means we should see an electric MG pickup sometime in the next few years. But not expecting it anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, an electric. Yeah, if we're going to talk about pie in the sky things, yeah, electric pickup would be in my top 10 as well. To be fair,
it's not pie in the sky. It actually exists at the moment.
Yeah,
I've seen photos of the engineering.
Whether it actually, wanted to go into that commercials market in the UK, or whether they'd leave it badged for LDV or SAIC, I don't know.
What's the other one? Maximus.
Maxus.
Yeah,
Maxus.
I was going to say about the the market, and kind of they need something to attract younger buyers, don't they? Isn't this Cyberster the sort of thing that's going to attract younger buyers into the brand? Because a lot of the bigger brands have this kind of, like Mercedes have the A class and BMW have the 1 Series. It's almost like that hook into the brand that a younger person needs to that would want, and then sticks with the brand, don't they? Isn't that that's the kind of marketing thing, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think that the MG3 would hopefully fill that sort of, well, the MG3 EV would fit that sort of bill. Again, you see, like SAIC does do a lot of, like, obviously they do a saloon car in China, the MG5 saloon, but saloons typically in Europe don't sell very well, and people prefer to have a hatchback or an estate car. So yeah, it's I'd like MG to have a lot more cars, and when in our showrooms, when we're building new showrooms, we make space for spare cars to go if there's some new ones coming to market. So whilst there's only the ZS, HS, and 5 at the moment, and the 3, so we could have a 4-car showroom. We build a 6-car showroom, or 8-car showroom, so we've got space for different cars to come in the future.
Have they offered you an electric version of the MG6?
No, that's not coming to UK yet, and I don't know that it would. come to UK again. If the MG6 was sold in the UK as a petrol car for a few years, and didn't have a massive sales volume. I just think that, particularly with it being right-hand drive, I think that perhaps the cost of getting across here isn't necessarily paid for, with a low volume.
I've got a comment here on the chat from Graham Horn suggesting a 7-seater using the sister company Deliver 3. I think that's an interesting one. I've driven and had a look at the Deliver 3, and I don't think there's any real way that van can really be made into a passenger van. It's been really dedicated and cut back as a freight vehicle. But SAIC builds some fantastic 7 and 8 seaters up down in China, up from me, down from you guys, that I think would suit the purpose far better. I'm not sure if you guys have ever seen an LDV or an SAIC G10 where they do an electric version of that, and that is an amazing luxury people mover. But it's just interesting to see whether they start pushing these things out into other markets. I guess if we move on down the list, there is one car that is a little closer to arriving at either end of the world for us, although still not confirmed yet, and that is the MG Marvel R. So, I mean, how interested are people in that coming to I guess for you guys, the UK? How keen are you to see that there?
Yeah, it looks great. Certainly, from what I've seen, it looks fantastic. I was a wee bit worried when you said last week it's just a revamp of an older model. I thought it was a completely new car, so that kind of set me back a wee bit. But yeah, it looks great, and certainly if it was, I put it on record, I'll even buy one from Miles. It's how desperate I am for one.
Anyone else coveting an R?
Is it coming to the UK? I thought.
I think it's delayed.
Yeah, so far MG UK has said that there's no news on the Marvel R coming to the UK. They've also said there's no news on the MG5 facelift coming to the UK. To be fair, if they're not coming soon, it kind of makes sense to say that anyway, because you wouldn't want to cannibalize sales of existing models. If it's going to come out, let's say, MG5, for example, facelift. In Europe, they've announced it now because they don't currently sell the MG5 in Europe.
Okay.
So it'd be the first model they get. So they've announced it now, and they're saying it's coming like October. Well, if they make the MG5 right-hand drive version on a similar production line, then you may say that there may be a similar sort of timescale for it coming to the UK. But they haven't confirmed anything yet, and I haven't had any news about anything coming up. When I've pushed them, I've been told it'll be 2022. But I've got no confirmed date for that. And certainly, when I've got a fleet full of I've got a compound full of MG5s that are waiting new homes, I wouldn't want to tell people, oh no, wait, get the new, wait for the new one, because obviously I've got loads to sell, and I've got 10 to sell in my compound. Well, MG have got quite a lot at Portbury that they're bringing across, so they probably want to make sure all those shit sell as well. So, having said that, I think the MG5 as it is now is very, very well priced for what it is, and I think that what they would probably do when they facelift it is probably they'll look at changing the pricing in the UK to probably closely reflect what they're charging for it in Europe, which is quite a few £1,000s more than what most people transacted the MG5 at the last 6 months.
Yeah, I think the big difference in that pricing at this stage, other than some of the cosmetic tweaks, has to come down to the fact they have taken it to the UK without a lot of those active safety features. That's the reason we don't get it down here at our end of the world. Yeah, it's an interesting situation, MG5. I think you guys were quite lucky to get it. You're pretty much about the only market so far outside of China to be driving that car. You must really love estate cars there.
Well, it was because there wasn't another EV estate car on the market in the UK, and so MG's plan was that we're going to launch it, the MG5 now, even though we know it's due a facelift in China, in a year, 12 months, 18 months, whatever, because we think we can find customers for these cars now. Whereas, so basically what I believe happened was that the UK got effectively Pro 8 EI5, but with a increased battery size, which didn't get in China straight away. Which they haven't got in China. So in China, I think it had like a 30-something kilowatt-hour battery, and we got a 52.5 kilowatt-hour battery. As sort of the last hurrah of that model line, and then it's been facelifted to the left-hand drive market for Europe, and then we're going to get another facelift when the right-hand drive market carries up. So it's quite strange the way that SAIC build the cars, that basically they often have different factories for both left and right-hand drive, and so they don't make them on the same production line. So there is, and like for example with the ZS EV, that's made on a different production line to the ZS Petrol, which is why the ZS Petrol was facelifted end of last year, and the ZS EV is still sporting the same looks as the previous model ZS Petrol. And again, there's supposed to be news of a ZS EV Petrol, ZS EV facelift at some point, but again, they haven't announced that in Europe, and they haven't announced it here. Again, probably because until they know when they're actually going to be built from, they don't want to pre-announce anything because they've got a whole lot of stock on the water coming across anyway.
Did I see somewhere that the sort of starting point's the high 30s, £40,000 for the Marvel R in the UK?
The Marvel R, I think it would be sold for around £35,000 in the UK. I think if you do a dollar to a Chinese currency to pound conversion, add a bit of VAT on, I think it gets to about £35,000, maybe 40 for the top of the higher range. Obviously, for the grant situation in the UK, it would be helpful if it came in at 35. But yeah, I mean,
yeah. So the interesting thing about the Marvel, and I'll go through a bit of my experience with it. I'm one of the few people down this end of the world who have driven it, or at least in its current form, is it's not really, it wasn't really designed from what I can see to sit within what you'd expect the kind of Marvel and so MG market range to be. And MG's kind of a mainstream value brand. That Marvel's really been built as a bit of a way to have a knock on the door of Audi and so on and so forth. It's quite a different vehicle. It's built to a very high standard. It feels extremely high quality in driving. And I've mentioned to people previously, I had this odd fascination with the car when I had it, looking around things like where the plastic joins the carpet and the footwells. It's just built in a way into a quality that don't think I've even seen on BMWs or Audis or Mercedes. They've gone to that level of detail in the car. It's a really premium car. So I drove it. It got brought out to New Zealand, a Shanghai plated left-hand drive car, for a year on a carnet for testing and for evaluation. And if they show the dealers what SAIC and MG could do. Spent a few days in it. It's the first and only electric car I've ever run out of electricity in, because I was the first one to drive it. It had next to nothing in the battery when I got it. Went to drive it home, had lots of range, saying on the guessometer, but I think that was based around it being tuned for 30km/h Shanghai traffic, not 100km/h up and down hill New Zealand country roads. That one didn't fast charge either. It has the Chinese standard GBT charging plugs, which will no doubt be changed out for when it comes to Europe or other markets. Interestingly, one plug on one side, one plug on the other side. The interior is in a very, I think, to Chinese tastes, baby poo tan brown velour. Again, something that I think will go before it makes it to the rest of the world. The interior is beautifully made, dominated by a massive interior touchscreen, Neuron, not quite exactly the same, but Neuron Model X, Model S size, with a very bespoke infotainment system that I believe is jointly developed with Alibaba, and it requires that it has to be paired with a Chinese SIM phone, so we couldn't really get to explore it hugely. But from what I could see, nice and responsive and so forth. Stereo was fantastic. The performance and the way the car drove was exceptional. It still had quite a soft I suspect, Chinese market luxury tune to it, but the steering was great. The ride handling were excellent. Performance was just brilliant. So that one there is not spec'd as high for power as the European spec Marvel R, but it did have the tri-motor system, so 3 electric motors, 52.5 kilowatt-hour battery. Again, I think they're going to go bigger for the future spec, and it uses a 2-stage transmission in the back. So you've got one motor in the front, 2 motors in the back, and a 2-speed transmission. And that, so when you can set it through various modes to either basically run on just a one-rear motor, to run on all motors, or to have all-wheel drive. When you hit the accelerator to get off, you get off very, very quickly, and then you feel at about 70 kilometers an hour, there's a change, the transmission change in the rear. It's very subtle, but it is there. And I think it just kind of helps that, the EVs tend to have that very fast torque punch when they get away, but they do tend to get a little bit breathless as they get further up the power curve. And I think that having that 2-stage transmission helps that. And also, I guess, helps the efficiency as it goes on. But look, impressive car from a build perspective. They will, I'm sure, update all those other things. If you want an idea of size, it's about the size of I think in practice, an Audi Q5. And I would be interested to see if it does make it to other parts of the world. I'm not entirely sure it will, because it is quite a way into its model run. So the question is whether they're going to be willing to invest in right-hand drive for what is going to be a moderately short lifespan, I think. Take it into Europe, a little bit of engineering, but no great need to transfer to right-hand drive. But I guess it's whether they're willing to invest in that right-hand drive switch as to whether we'll see it in our markets.
It makes you wonder how, in the past, I know there are some cars that went to Europe from other manufacturers where, for instance, there was a Mercedes, the GLA, that didn't originally come to the UK to be sold because you couldn't change it to right-hand drive, whereas the platform, etc., for an EV is a lot far simpler, isn't it? It's not like you've got a clutch or a gearbox to put in the way. So it does make you wonder what the difference is in engineering and production, how much of a difference it does cost to put the steering mechanism on the right-hand side. And obviously there's pedals and dials as well, isn't there?
I imagine probably part of it, actually, with the EVs is probably, I think from like the ZS point of view, things like that, is where they put all the electronic gubbins under the dashboard. So all of your computers that run all of the big tablets in the Marvel R are probably situated somewhere under the left passenger side dashboard. So you have to rehome all of those.
Okay, of course, yeah.
So, yeah. Whereas, me and you probably quite happily take a Dremel to the dashboard and cut a hole and put a hole through. I think that, and certainly I've had cars in the past, 1970s Russian Lada Niva that was basically converted like that. Then I think that, probably it's in cases you have to move all the supercomputers from one side of the dash to the other to be able to make it right and drive.
Yeah, I recall there being, I think it was a Renault that was so badly converted that they had to recall them all in right-hand drive markets, because if the passenger stomped really hard on the side of their footwell, they would actually trigger the brake because they'd moved it over with a rod.
Yeah, there was some. Yeah, I've heard stories like that. Yeah,
most of Stuart's passengers do.
Thank you very much. I think it's an interesting one, isn't it? You feel almost victimised because we're a right-hand drive market, because you're right-hand drive in New Zealand as well, aren't you?
Yeah.
And Australia is, and Japan is, but I guess they're not exporting to Japan either, are they? I don't suppose do they?
Japan tends not to take. They take American vehicles and European vehicles, but Korea failed to go in there. It's unlikely China will do a lot of in there as well, I suspect.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's history or if it's just they're just so supportive of their own market production.
Yeah.
They stick with
what they've got. The Japanese buy their own, I guess.
So anyone seeing anything interesting on the chat?
Yeah, Carol Taylor's raised a good point that it's really good having a central charging point in the middle of the grill, and certainly I find it really handy. And wherever you go, whether it's a charge point or whether at home, it's really convenient rather than having to think. And the point you're making there, Richard, that car you're speaking about, you said they had one charge point on one side and the other one sets different types of charge points on the car.
Yeah. So the Marvel X has a GBT one, so it has the AC on one side. The AC on it is we had an adapter to run it to Type 2, and then it's got a DC on the other side of the car. Wow. I think the only other car I know of with the two at the moment is the Taycan.
Oh, I couldn't cope with that.
Yeah, it's like the Nissan Leaf. The AC port is completely different to the DC port. It's like with most European models, we got the combined port.
Yeah, the CCS standard makes it a lot easier. I think that the e-tron, the Audi e-tron's another one which is dual-sided charging. So one side it's got CCS, and the other side it's got just Type 2. So
I think it's optional on the e-tron.
Yeah, so you can have. The thing is, if you've got the, I don't really see the benefit of that. You'd want probably both on both sides, if you know, rather than having. Otherwise, what's the point in doubling it up? But,
I think the reason they've potentially done it with the e-tron is that the DC charging point's on the driver's side of the car. So if you pull up to street side AC charging, that can be problematic. Certainly is where I charge frequently. Yeah.
Mike, is there anything else come up in the chat that you've seen?
Electric tailgate and a pneumatic boot or frunk is a winner from Keith George. From David, MG needs a common EV platform that can support varying car sides, like Hyundai Kia has done with the GMP and VW Group have produced.
I think part of the issue for MG is that they have this very quick life cycle on the cars. And like we've seen, obviously, with the MG5 getting facelifted, now that the front of the new MG5 looks closer to the Marvel R, doesn't it? I think initially MG was trying to go, I mean, you're not so shocked if you park an MG ZS next to a Mazda, they look very, very, very similar. There's another one in our estate in a similar red, and they do look very, very similar. The CX-3 is it? And then so I think MG initially tried to do a sort of, and yeah, if you look back at the GS and the original MG3, they had a different grille type as well to what then the ZS did, and then the ZS and the HS look the same, and then they've facelifted the MG3 to look like the ZS, and then they've changed the front of the new ZS again, and obviously the MG5 is getting a facelift which is going to look closer, I think, to the Roe, and I think we're probably going to see, the large chrome grills being replaced by a more smooth bumper as the models move electric. There's no point in having a big chrome air intake on the front if the car is not needing an air intake. So I think that the MG5 there, it looks to me that, to my eyes, that looks more like the Marvel R. And so if that's the new direction that the MG design team are taking, then it's safe to assume that the MG3 electric or MG3 sized electric vehicle that's launched will probably have a similar sort of look and feel. I quite like on the Cyberster, those sort of oval headlamps that sort of hark back to the two-seaters of the past. I think that's perhaps a design that I think they should go for, particularly on the sports car models. I think that would help bring a layer of heritage back into the design language that you just don't have on these new MG5 and the Marvel R.
Yeah, I think it was Dave Wren was saying earlier, it would be good to see the MG looking at an MGB or a two-seater sports car or a 2+2 and stick to their heritage, which is a valid point. The Cyberstar looks a bit more space rocket than maybe the old MGB was.
I think it looks great. I think the Cyberster looks great, and I think that whatever car comes out is going to be obviously the designers have got working for them. They've got an eye for it. You know, they're not just using tracing paper on old Mazdas anymore. They're actually coming up with their own ideas. So
perhaps Mazda had an issue with it.
Yeah, so Keyforce Awas, well, he actually says his neighbour thought the seats and interior of his ZS was better than the neighbour's Model 3. The neighbour was pleasantly surprised at how good quality the MG's was.
Yeah, I actually really rate the seats on the MG5. I found the driver's seat on the MG5 really comfortable with the lumbar support and the electric adjustment. I always found my, the ZSEV, I found that comfy enough, but the MG5, I've done some longer journeys, as in the full 200 miles before needing a charge sort of situation, and 3 hours plus of a drive. I got out feeling fine, which now that I'm over 40, I'm finding increasingly difficult in a lot of cars.
One of the things I found, sorry. One of the things I found with the 5, especially that I was concerned about, was the level of comfort I used to have in the Mercedes, that I used to get out of that and not really ache. And yet now I'm doing journeys, around about 100 miles, I think, is the furthest I'm doing for work at the moment to somewhere. And I don't feel anything, and you're quite right, the lumbar support, and there's no faffing about with it either. It just seems to be really comfortable. Even when Sarah gets in the car and takes it, all I need to do is just move it a couple of bits. And I've never not felt comfortable in it. So yeah, it's a thumbs up there. I personally think the comfort and just the general ergonomics of the 5 are really impressive. Most, I can only speak for the 5 because I have nothing, I haven't seen a ZS, but no, I can only sort of speak highly of it. Anybody that was looking for an estate car like the 5, if they were worried about comfort, I wouldn't be, most definitely.
Yeah, the only thing about the ZS, I would really like the passenger seat to be adjustable. I still hanker this idea of buying a driver's seat from Europe and taking over and getting it fitted on the UK passenger side, but I haven't done the costings in that, but I think they'd probably be prohibitive.
Is that for the electric to adjust it? I wouldn't bother, it's just the passenger, Dave.
No, but sometimes she has to drive you back from the pub, doesn't she? So
I think from a quality perspective, the interior finish in the not the finish, but the actual solidity and the quality of the build and the sort of stitching in the seats was definitely better in the ZS than the earlier Model 3s. The Model 3s have improved dramatically lately in a lot of parts of the world, and that comes from coming out of Shanghai as opposed to coming out of America. So I don't think anyone can really argue with the Chinese quality these days. Now I've picked up an interesting thing.
Else is just saying that something was spoken about the past tinted windows. On you go, Richard. Sorry.
Yeah, I've picked up an interesting thing in New Zealand this last week off a local Facebook page here, and that's that hopefully you guys over there might have some insight. You're a bit ahead of us on this. People who have had the battery, the BMS update to fix their issues, have been advised here they need to actually go and DC charge the car before AC charging it as part of their battery leveling process. Have you guys got any thoughts on that, or had any experience with that?
I mean, all I can say is that from speaking to the engineers at Longbridge, the advice that we had was to that the battery only balances when it's being slow charged and only when it's doing the last few percent on the battery. So it doesn't really matter what you do charge wise to get it up to sort of 90 odd percent, but there's no balancing going to happen until it's actually doing those last few percent on the charger. So and what we've seen ourselves is that the process that people were doing, or Longbridge were doing on their own car, was that you'd slow charge it to 100%, leave it for about 9 hours whilst it does the balancing, and then they were discharging it by switching it on in their workshop overnight with no consumers or anything else on, just leaving the car on in ready mode, obviously in a locked workshop. Overnight, it was dropping to about 93%, which is coincidentally the level at which it does a downward balance to. And then they were charging it again the next day during the day, and then they were letting it discharge a bit overnight. So that, by doing both the positive and negative discharge balance, they found that it got there a little bit sooner. But that's with not driving the car in between and everything else. Obviously, most people out there have to use the car to actually, as a car to get around in. And so I'd recommend, that you just keep it topped up every night. You just put it on charge on an AC charge. As long as it's, it will always balance. It doesn't matter whether it's on a 7 kilowatt or a 3 kilowatt or a 2 kilowatt granny charge. If it's on AC, it will do the balancing. I can track it on my app on my charger, and it shows it drops down to about 300 watts for the duration of the balancing process. And once I'd had the extended balancing time, once it was getting to the 449 volts and it was balanced out. Now when I'm doing a balance, it's taking sort of about an hour, 2 hours to do a balance at the end of the charge, as opposed to before it was sort of 6-7 hours. So it's obviously got there and it's fixed now, I think.
Yeah, I was just about to say today I was topping up on solar and finally got to 100%, and it balanced out. The first one, it balanced out within an hour. Then I had to do a quick trip to town and back, and that then balanced out within 45 minutes. So yeah, it's pretty much fixed, and mine's been updated January of this year, the BMS.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I started off with what you were recommending, Miles, there, or what you said MG were recommending, and that was leaving the car on ready. But it's quite a risky process, because if somebody does come along and nick your car, your insurance company will.
Yeah, no, I said it was, if you had a locked garage, you're able to sort of, block it in, or, locked workshop that they have at Longbridge, then fair enough. But I just recommended it'll take slightly longer, but just doing the positive balances between, just put it on charge at every opportunity, really.
That's what I'm doing mainly now. I was leaving it on ready, but now I'm sort of getting it down to about 80, 85. Just taking it for a run, get down to about 80, 85, and then give it a full charge again. My balance is taking about 5-6 hours, I think, somewhere about there. But the good news is, as of yesterday, I'm up to 445 volts, so just 5 to go. It's getting there. And I must admit, I have seen a far better range capacity with the car, massively. And that warning light, you must recharge, stopped coming up. Yeah, it stopped being flagged on the dashboard. And the other thing, which maybe is just coincidence, but that noise when the brakes are
priming.
Yeah, that started again, and I can't remember it happening before. So I wasn't sure if I have got to a state of decent charge that all these things are coming back to me. I would have hoped the brakes would have been all right before.
Yeah, I can't think of any reason why you wouldn't hear the noise before, unless.
As I say, it could be coincidental. It will be.
It could have just been perhaps colder weather and you had your heating on more and your fans were on stronger, or something. You just masked it a bit, maybe.
Right, Dave. What topics have been discussed most on the forums this week?
Yeah, it's just something that we want to introduce. So we just had a look through what the most responses were on new threads. The 3 most responses were charging point cars. That was cards. That was started by Phil 752. Black roof upgrade was started by Johnny MG, and the Pro Scanner EML app was started by Lynx Robert. And these are things that we've covered before to some degree, but again, if folk want them, we're happy to do that. On the longer running items, Project OBD2, the mobile app version 1.2.1, was started by Abu G, and there's a lot of responses to that. The low battery reduced power started by WAC 768. And then, I hate to say this, but bigger wheels, wider tyres was started by our now evergreen boy racer, miles per kilowatt hour. So we're really happy if folk are wanting to latch onto some of these things and have them on the podcast. We're happy to discuss them. And then I noticed one of the other ones that comes up a lot is the creaking noise. Folk are asking, where does the creaking noise emanate from, and is everybody getting it? And since reading it, I think I have got a creaking noise. It's beginning to worry me.
From your knees.
That was years ago. But yes, I thought it was coming from the steering column, but then sometimes I think it's coming from above me, and sometimes it seems to be coming from the doorpost. I don't know where the creaking noise comes from.
That's not the rattling roof issue?
Might be. It's just so difficult to tie down where this noise is coming from, but and it's not. It's very intermittent. You're driving along one time, it's nice and quiet. Next time you can hear this noise.
You noticed we had a rattle on the ZS. We went out on Saturday, Sunday, and we had the roof in tilt mode, and went over a couple of bumps and sort of heard a rattle. And wife was saying, "That's coming from your side." And I was like, "No, it's coming from your side somewhere." And actually, it was the roof. When we moved the roof closed, it stopped rattling. When we moved it back, it stopped rattling. It was only when it was in the tilt position.
Right.
It's been something just they hadn't locked it properly in position or what, I don't know, or there's something that just allowed it to rattle slightly. Only when we went over bumps. It wasn't like a constant rattle. It was just when you went over a bump in the road and it just jolted it.
Which will be all the time in South Wales at the moment.
That's true. Yeah.
Now, one way you could try and solve that rattle is by considering purchasing a premium membership for the MG EVs forum. The results may vary. It's just £3 a month, but that gives you the premium member badge, the ability to upload a profile banner, the ability to select the MG red theme, a 10% discount for MG EVs merchandise like that fantastic shirt over there in the premium members private forum, and the pleasure of knowing that you're supporting the website and this podcast. And thank you to our new premium member since last time, Tom. So any more Q&A down there in the chat that's worth answering?
Everyone's chatting about tint still, about which are the best tinting companies to use. We use a subsidiary of Global Tints. There's Global Tints all over the UK. They seem to charge about £200 for a car, depending on your area. Yeah, all right. I don't know if MG are gonna ever put a tinting production line in for their glass. When I inquired as to why they don't tint any of the cars, I don't think even the windows on the Marvel are tinted from the factory. I said, they just said, I don't think they actually have the production process on their line.
The Marvel I drove had fairly seriously tinted windows.
Aftermarket or
no, from it's delivered to New Zealand at least.
Okay, we'll see how maybe they're using a different supplier for that glass. I don't know, but the ZS at the moment and the HS, none of them come with tinted windows still in either UK or European market. So.
And going back to the charging card issue that was raised, is that a problem that's happens a lot down in England? We've got our own system up here in Scotland, as you know, Charge Place Scotland, but even that's under review. They've just a new operator's coming in, Swarco, be in, I think it's July that they're going to take ownership of it. So again, we'll be happy to release updates on that as soon as more information is available. But one of the things they've said is we've got a £20 registration fee per annum just now, and they're saying that will go, which makes me as a Scotsman and you as a Yorkshireman, Miles, think, oh, if they're doing away with the annual small charge, what are they going to hit you with? Will it be added on an ongoing sort of revenue cost?
I would imagine if it's Swarco, the same people who have done the Greater Manchester EV scheme.
Right.
So Greater Manchester EV scheme was previously under CYC, and then it's been redone. They put a whole of new chargers which are faster, more reliable, work on most cars, a lot more widespread, etc. But they've also bringing a charge in for that, and it kind of depends. it depends how much they want to subsidise it. They can either bring it in at something like 15 pence per kilowatt hour, which, you know, you'd say, well, that's sort of equivalent to home charging cost. That's not too bad. Or if they want to try and make some money back on their investment of all these rapid chargers they're putting in, then it might be closer to sort of 35 pence per kilowatt hour.
Mhm.
But
Or they could go IONT and just go 79 pence.
69 pence for IONT, yeah. Or yeah, it's I mean, one thing about the IONT chargers, I sort of get it. I mean, you know, free chargers are great when you're the first one that gets there and you're on it and you're using it. But what I've often found with free chargers, the local to us in West Yorkshire, they've put a whole lot of free chargers in, and they're free until October this year. But you get locals who will come and charge to save themselves £5 charging at home, and they'll do it, you know, just when you need a charge and you're stuck and you can't get anywhere and you desperately need a charge. Somebody else is just sat there reading the paper or playing on his phone because he can, you know, for the sake of an hour, he can save himself £4 or £5. So I think there needs to be a modest charge on there just to stop the freeloaders. I know that when the electric highway was free, I went to Charnock for Richard services and bumped into somebody in Zoe who was charging their car there. They lived down the road from Charnock Richard, and they went to charge at Charnock Richard for free every 2 nights, because it saved them, you know, £2 on charging their Renault Zoe. And it's like, I mean, if you don't like your kids and you want to get out of the house for an hour or two, I suppose it's a plan. But I just think it's, you know, my time's got more value than that. But I think that some people will do it just because it's free. It's like if we said to our clients, you know, if we said to our customers, look, if you're ever passing the dealership, come in, we'll give you £5, we'll give you a gallon of petrol for free. We'd have queues around the dealership. So I think that, you know, whenever you give away electricity for free, it
leads to bad habits. It leads to bad etiquette.
Yeah, and I also think that the pay-to-use chargers are better maintained based on absolutely no science whatsoever. Every time I stopped that pay-to-use charger, it's worked, whereas the free ones can be a bit of Russian roulette.
The problem with the free ones is that if there's no money coming in for it to be used, then there's no incentive for the person operating that to get it fixed soon.
Yeah,
you're going to be, you know, if your rapid charger is effectively cost you £30,000 to install, and every time somebody uses it, you're losing £5, you wouldn't be in a massive rush to fix it, would you? If it's going to cost you £3,000 for a new cable, and that's the issue. Whereas if you're looking at a return on investment, and you're thinking, okay, well, every time somebody uses this, I'm going to get paid £10. I'm going to make, you know, £5 profit on the electric, let's say. Then you're more likely to get somebody out quickly to fix it.
By the way, Jake Lewis has just fessed up to being the person who's reading his paper and is on his phones. Sorry, sure.
We have the issue here where we have a number of free DC fast chargers in Auckland at the moment and a separate paid network, and people will queue 3 Nissan Leafs deep at a free charger rather than drive the 300 meters away to the one that's going to cost them 25 cents a minute and 25 cents a kilowatt. People, and I think they're actually a lot of the time damaging their vehicles by excessively DC charging simply because it's free. It's not good for the overall experience of using an EV. Ultimately, in the end, I don't think free DC charging at least. Right. Anything else we want to look at there?
I'll just ask Miles, maybe just quickly. Sorry, looking at the forum, I haven't looked at this thread for a while, but it's talking about the roof rails on the 5.
Yeah.
So there's now rated at 35 kilos, pending some kind of official study. Do you know anything about
that? I know that they were looking at a 35 kilo limit for the MG5 roof rails. I still haven't seen a confirmation of it actually coming out yet. I'm waiting for a unless I've missed it too far. I haven't been in the office today, so
yeah, it was.
I haven't seen any of the actual.
Because some people have actually bought. I've only seen it briefly because I didn't have a lot of time before getting on than getting home from work, so I haven't really looked at it. But some people are actually buying the rails to go across to the whatever they're called to make the roof rack, the crossbars.
Mm-hmm.
So some people seem to be buying them, but I was trying to scoot through and see, but it looks like it's pending some kind of DVSA official.
Yeah, so they believe that they want them qualified for 35 kilos. I mean, as I said before, before all this was known, I drove with about 50 kilos in a roof box on my MG5, and nothing fell off. But obviously, I've not done anything since we were advised that they weren't type approved. So we're waiting for the approval to come through. I don't know. Yeah, it's not been confirmed as yet. I am waiting for MG to confirm this.
Yeah, there's a few
I got
pictures.
30 quid. Yeah, 30 quid. They talk about on the forum about some Brio roof bars, which are about £30 from Lidl, which I bought. I just found them really, really, really loads of wind noise. They were really, really, really noisy for the cheap ones. So I think probably if I was getting some in the, to replace them, I'd probably go for the Yakima Wisp bars.
Yeah, there's loads of people like there's a few on the 5 from Adam, MGEV and Scorpion. Looks like they've bought some. There's some on Amazon. So I guess they're just generic that go onto the rails that are there. But so what I'll do is I'll have a look at it and then maybe we can discuss that next week. I don't know, just to see what the legalities are around it, if that's okay.
Yeah, no, I haven't had any update as of yet, but I'm waiting with bated breath on that one.
Okay. All right, that's me done. Thank you.
Excellent. Right. Well, I think we've had a pretty good run there. Just for anyone who wants to have a bit more of a look at the Marvel X, I have actually done a video walk around of the car. So if you go to the EVs and Beyond YouTube channel, then you have to go back about a year. There is a video there of a walk around of the Marvel X. Otherwise, look, thank you all for joining us and participating in the chat. Don't forget to go and sign up to the premium forum thing and check out those t-shirts yet again. My thanks to our fantastic model there. So that's our Pound a Day Michael Fisher, David Stewart, Miles Roberts, Stuart Whitman, and Stuart Wright, I believe, is working the panel behind there. Thank you for that. We'll be back next Monday at the usual time of 7:30. So thanks for joining us.
Good night.